Jack doesn't need it. Jack knows all this stuff.
Jack handles things differently anyway.
Because I was sitting backward.
He just turned around and
He didn't see me.
So, last week we watched a couple videos because we didn't have a Buddhist monk come and speak to us like I had hoped.
And those videos were good.
You enjoyed the videos?
Yeah.
Good, excellent. I thought they were pretty good also. And I think they really gave a feel or a flavor for what the life of a Theravada Buddhist monk is like. But I want to go back now to the Sunday before last when we were talking about the Buddha in the deer park near Benares when he began to turn the wheel of Dhamma. And we talked a little bit about that, and I kind of quickly rushed through the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path. And it's that I want to focus in on and actually spend some real time talking about. You'll see on the back of your handout, there's a picture. This is from actually not far from here. There's a little park that's owned by Buddhist monastic community, I guess you'd say, although I think there's only one monk who's there right now. So this is, I think it's Louisa. I was there over the summer. Not far away, maybe a 30-minute drive from here. And there's different statues from the life of the Buddha, and so the one that I've got here is him at the deer park turning the wheel of Dhamma with the 5 ascetics or bhikkhus that I had mentioned when I was telling you the story of the Buddha's life. And you see also the deer sitting by him as he teaches. Also on this back page, you'll notice that there is a symbol, and this is the Dharma Chakra, or this is the wheel of the Dhamma. And you'll notice that there are 8 spokes on the wheel, and the 8 spokes, of course, correspond to each part of the Noble Eightfold Path. And I was thinking about this as I was telling you, and I even think I left out one of I think I only mentioned 7 the week before last. I think I forgot to mention right action. But you'll see, and I've got it right next to the list of the Noble Eightfold Path here. Right view or right understanding, right intention or right resolve, right purpose, right thought. The second one is translated in various ways like that. Both of these make up what's known as panya, or wisdom. Then right speech, right action, or sometimes translated as right conduct, and right livelihood or right occupation. These 3 make up morality, or sila, and then right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration make up samadhi. And you can get this sense, because they're listed out in that way, that you just move from one to the other, and then once you get down to number 8, you're good to go. But actually, this is why I put the picture of the Dharma Chakra there, the wheel of Dhamma, is because it's circular. You're always, if you are a Buddhist practitioner, engaging in all 8 of these spokes of the wheel of Dhamma. And they move. They're what move you down the path to the cessation of dukkha, or suffering, to the end of suffering, to the attainment, if you can word it this way, of nibbana or nirvana. So you're always moving through these, and you can see that the first one, right view, is you have to have the right view. You have to have this understanding of the Four Noble Truths, that life is dukkha or suffering, that there is an origin or cause of suffering or dukkha, there is the cessation of dukkha or suffering, and that the cessation comes through the Noble Eightfold Path. You have to already have that view if you want to start the wheel turning. But I also mentioned that the Buddhist monk that I was talking to, the one who wasn't able to make it here, says, well, you have to start with morality. Well, that would have us down at right speech, right action, and right livelihood. But you're not going to engage in right action and right speech and right livelihood unless you already have the right view. And so you see it kind of goes around, and each time it turns, you have a deeper understanding of the Four Noble Truths, of the path to the cessation of dukkha or suffering. And in fact, part of the Buddhist understanding is that it's only through, particularly the Theravada school of Buddhism, it's only through a lifetime of practice, of turning this wheel of meditation so that you grow deeper in your understanding, that you really even have this first one, right view. You really it's only after a lifetime of doing this that you attain a right view of the Four Noble Truths and all that goes along with them. So I'm not a practitioner of Buddhism. This means that from a Buddhist perspective, whatever I'm going to tell you about the Four Noble Truths is not going to be a very deep, profound, or good understanding, right? Because you have to be a practitioner to have that kind of deep, profound, and good understanding, to have the right view. So I'm going to give you, the watered down, not really true or good or view understanding of the Four Noble Truths. But let's get into it. Luckily, the Buddha's teachings were recited by the first bhikkhus, and they passed it down until finally it was written down, so I can rely on his teaching and at least give you that. So you remember the first noble truth is dukkha, suffering. All things are suffering. Buddha says birth is dukkha, or suffering. Aging is dukkha. Sickness is dukkha. Death is dukkha. Sorrow and lamentation are dukkha. Pain, grief, and despair are dukkha. Association with the unpleasant is dukkha. Separation from the pleasant is dukkha. Not getting what you want is dukkha. To sum it up, the 5 kandhas of attachment are dukkha. And we'll get into these kandhas, but this is a Pali word, Sanskrit word is skandhas. Kandhas, it just means heap, so 5 heaps, but it's sometimes translated as aggregates. And in the Buddha's teaching, when you see something in the world, including another person, what you're seeing is the coming together of these aggregates, these kandhas, particularly in talking about beings. 5 kandhas coming together. So the second noble truth is samudaya, that there is an origin or cause of dukkha, of suffering, and this origin, this cause of dukkha is tanha, which is literally translated as thirst, but can also and is often translated as craving or desire. So the origin of suffering is craving and desire. The Buddha says that Tanha produces re-existence and re-becoming. That is, as we've talked about before, the cycle of samsara. Things come into existence. But we've talked about the cycle of samsara as principally being things being born, living, growing old, getting sick, dying, being reborn. Buddha has even a more profound understanding of this. It's not just that you're alive for a time and then you die and then you're reborn. You're alive for a time and you die and you're reborn. It's that in every moment, what you think of as I or me, what I think of as Jack or Jeanette, is really just the coming together of the 5 kandhas for that moment. And then they pass away and they come together again in the next moment. And they pass away and they come together. So samsara isn't just birth, death, rebirth, and re-death. It's this momentary, at every moment, coming into existence and passing away. And that is produced by Tanha, by desire or craving. Particularly desire and craving as a volitional act, an act of will, so with intention that directs desire here, directs desire there. So he says this is desire for sensual pleasures, desire for existence or becoming, just the desire to exist. Even, and this is kind of I think a shot out at some of his disciples who might misunderstand him, even the desire for non-existence, to escape samsara, in a sense, is tanha, and is a volitional act. And as a volitional act, it produces karma in Sanskrit, or kama in Pali. And we've seen karma or kama show up in different ways before. We talked about this a little bit last time. But karma traditionally just means act, and every act has a consequence, which is the way that we see it, for example, in the Bhagavad Gita and in Hinduism. We've also seen in Jainism how karma actually is these actions that make heavy or light material stick to your soul, your jiva, right? And so here it's a little bit different. Kama is it's the thread that holds together the pearls of becoming, you might say, right? It's what draws the 5 aggregates, the 5 kandhas together. So any volitional act, any act of the will, which is also an act of desiring, of craving, of tanha, will draw together the 5 aggregates into becoming again and again and again, not just life after life, but moment after moment. So, Buddha says, all beings possess their kama, are heirs of their kama, are born of their kama, are bound to their kama, are supported by their kama. The kama draws together the 5 kandhas, the 5 heaps or 5 aggregates. And what are these 5 aggregates or these 5 kandhas? I won't get into everything that's on your sheet. That's for you to look more deeply in. I'll just talk about the 5 kandhas and not get into breaking down further the aspects of them. But the first is rupa, or material form. So in your case, this is your body. Your body is your material form. The second is vedana, your senses or sensations. The third is sana, perceptions. The fourth is samsara, mental formations. We'll come back in a second. And the fifth is vijnana, or consciousness. So back to number 4, sankhara, for a second. These are mental formations. These contain the 50, what he identifies as the 52 volitional acts of the mind, the 52 examples of tanha that create kama, that bring together the 5 aggregates. All right. So what has he not mentioned so far that you might expect him to mention when he's talking about persons or beings that are conscious, they have consciousness, they have sensations and perception?
How about speech? I don't see any speech.
Yeah, speech would be one of the things that you do that would be produced.
About spirit.
Yeah, so he doesn't say anything about spirit or soul or the self. Nothing about that has come up yet, right?
As I understand it, when you're talking about things coming together,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess I agree with you with individual spirit, but the greater spirit, I think, is referenced in what you just described. Right?
Well, let's keep going and we'll see what he says, because this is an important point. So let's hold on to that for a second. Let's just note that at least so far he hasn't said anything about spirit or soul or even essence of the individual. That's right.
It's an important distinction.
Hmm?
I think it's an important distinction.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Right. All right. So we move now to the third noble truth, and how are we looking time-wise, by the way?
Well, 10 minutes
Okay. 10 minutes.
more.
More, 10 minutes more.
Okay.
It's 20 till.
Okay, great. So the third noble truth is nirodha, or the cessation of dukkha. Dukkha can be blown out. And here we have, we can talk for a moment about what in Sanskrit is nirvana, or in the Pali nibbana. This is a word that just means blowing out. You might translate it as extinguishing or extinction, but it just means blowing out. So if you imagine a candle being lit and you blow it out. Dukkha will cease if you blow out or you extinguish tanha, thirst, desire, craving. Okay? When tanha is extinguished, when craving is extinguished, kama is produced. Without kama, the 5 kandhas will not be drawn together again. When tanha, kama, and kandhas are blown out, this is nibbana, the cessation of dukkha. So nirvana or nibbana is not a place that you go. Right? You don't go to nirvana when you die. You don't go to nibbana. It is the cessation, the blowing out of desire or craving, which then means that you no longer produce volitional acts that bring together the 5 aggregates. Closely connected to this is the concept of Anicca. And I hope I'm pronouncing that right. This is translated as impermanence. This is key for the Buddha. Everything that exists is impermanent. Everything is transient. Everything is conditioned. There's no thing, there's nothing that exists that is not impermanent, that does not come into being and then pass out of being. If it exists, that means that it came into being at some point and it will cease to be at some point. Everything is impermanent. And those of you, this isn't a Theravada practice, this is a Mahayana or Vajrayana practice, but you've seen the sand mandalas that they make, these gorgeous sand mandalas. They spend days, maybe months working on them, and then they wipe it away in one stroke.
Throw it into the James.
Throw it into the river, that's right. This is a meditation, this is a practical meditation on impermanence. Nothing is permanent. So this will help us understand, by the way, why we haven't heard him talk about something like an essence or a spirit or a soul. Because usually when people make appeals to essence or spirit or soul, what they're making an appeal to is something that's permanent while everything else changes. What a modern analytic philosopher would call the persistence condition, the thing that makes there be some kind of persistence or continuity over time. There is nothing like that, according to the Buddha. Everything is impermanent. All right, so if that's the case, if all existence is impermanent in this way, that means it's all conditioned. Everything kind of bounces off of something else, or is contingent on something else. So we see when there's a line in Buddhist scriptures in the Pali Canon, when this is, that is. This arising, that arising. When this is not, that is not. This ceasing, that ceases. And in particular, there's a important teaching about what's sometimes called conditioned genesis. So how do things come into existence? Well, it begins with ignorance. Ignorance gives rise to volitional acts, acts of will. Tanha, that creates kama, desires that have the effect of kama. Volitional acts give rise to consciousness, vijnana. Consciousness gives rise to mental and physical phenomena, or what's more often translated as name and form. Mental and physical phenomena, or name and form, give rise to the six faculties. These are what we would call the five senses plus mind. The six faculties give rise to contact. This is interaction between things. Contact gives rise to sensation or vedana. Sensation or vedana gives rise to desire, tanha. Desire or tanha gives rise to clinging or attachment. Clinging and attachment give rise to becoming or being, existence. Becoming or being gives rise to birth. And birth, as we know, gives rise to dukkha or suffering. Now again, what doesn't mention? Spirit, soul, self. Right? Who is ignorant? He doesn't say. There's no who to be ignorant. There's just ignorance. And ignorance gives rise to the volitional act. So we've now moved to, I think, one of the most difficult concepts in traditional Buddhist teaching, the teaching of the Buddha, which is Atman or Anatta. And do you remember what the Atman is? Self or soul. So many of you weren't here for the talk on Advaita Vedanta, which is the Hindu school of philosophy, which says that the whole point of samadhi and jhana, the whole point of meditation and concentration is to realize that your true self is not all these things that are changing, including even your consciousness, which is always changing, but the I that goes before that can be aware even of consciousness, the first person perspective, which is related to the, which is the Atman. So you want to identify not with body, not with senses, not with perceptions, not with mind, not even with consciousness, but with Atman in Advaita Vedanta Hinduism. Because once you recognize that you are truly Atman, then you know you can take the next step, which is Atman is Brahman, which is going back to what Jesse was talking about, the ground of all being, the spirit, you might say, that gives rise to all creation. That's Advaita Vedanta. Okay? You remember in Jainism, you have a jiva. Everybody has a jiva, and the jiva, which is sometimes called a jivatman, right, bringing together the words jiva and atman, is ultimately uncreated, never-ending, and infinite. And so you want to identify with your jiva, not with your body. Buddha rejects both of these. He says anatman or anatta, no atman, no self, no soul. There's no you that comes before all these other things that make you up. That's the illusion you have to overcome, that there's a you. So ignorance is the illusion that you are a self or a soul, and that the other beings that you meet are selves or souls. Ignorant of anatta, tanha, desire, and therefore kama, arise. Kama strings together the 5 kandhas over and over again, as we've said, and the coming together of the 5 kandhas is dukkha, or suffering. So nirvana is not the annihilation of the self or the soul, as some people wrongly say, because that would assume that there's a self or soul to be annihilated, to be blown out. It's not the self or soul that's blown out in nirvana or nirvana. It's desire. There was never a self or soul in the first place. So it is the end of dukkha through the cessation of kama, through the extinguishing of tanha, by knowledge of the truth of dukkha, anicca, and anatta. That is nirvana. If you realize, and you're not going to realize this just by coming to a logical decision about this, thinking it through. This is what takes turning the wheel of Dhamma. This is what takes moving through that Noble Eightfold Path to realize that there is no you. And so there is no reason for you to desire things, even to exist, because there's no you to exist. And there's no clinging. There's nothing to cling to. Everything is impermanent. And there's no you to do the clinging. This is the great truth of anatta. Once you have a hold of this, then you can begin the Noble Eightfold Path and get a deeper and deeper understanding of what this means. I think I need to wrap up there.
1 minute.
1 minute? Excellent.